frizzy hair during this video, but hello guys, hi. So welcome back. It's kind of a long time no see type of situation, but it's July. It is actually Friday the 3rd of July today. It is 3 p.m. and I thought today I'm going to pick up the camera and we're going to have a little chat. I kind of want to catch you up on the last month because, as you know, I haven't really been on this channel a lot. I did upload 2 videos, I think, during June, and they were both kind of like slightly pre-recorded, pre-planned uploads, so I just kind of had them sitting on my computer and decided that I would put them out there. Obviously, we're all hyper aware at the moment that we are living in an incredibly emotional and intense time right now, with everything going on in the world in terms of, you know, kind of living through a moment of history that I don't think I've ever witnessed in my lifetime. I'm sure many of you won't do either. That, you know, the world is a different place right now. The world is kind of closed off, and it's just a very heavy, deep situation that's been ongoing now, as we know, for months and months. And I feel like it kind of has just been this weight that I know everybody is feeling. At the beginning, it was very scary, very visceral, right there kind of fear, which I think kind of got a little bit dulled as people got used to this new normal, and then over time it's just kind of been this constant, almost like pain, and feeling of hopelessness, and just like an ever-present weight, really. I mean, I'm speaking for myself here, but I know that there are so many out there across the whole world that probably share the same thoughts and feelings. And then obviously with this situation that is ongoing again right now, I want to say in America, but again, it's a global issue, it's a political issue, it's a human issue, after the just horrific death of George Floyd, and the protests that kind of followed on from that, and this kind of like awakening seems like the wrong word, and it seems like a very unjustified word because people should not have been asleep, but that's kind of what has happened. And it seems as though kind of like finally, it feels like finally the world has decided that it's going to pay attention to these issues that have been there forever, really, for the last 400 or 500 years, that have only really intensified, and people, you know, think that's all history. Slavery has been abolished, you know, that type of racism doesn't exist in the world, and it just truly does. And we've seen that demonstrated so very at the forefront of our lives right now, with the Black Lives Matter movement being just propelled, you know, not just into the minds of those that it affects directly, but to everybody. And that's how it always should have been. So it's been a very kind of draining and emotional time. That's just for me as well, and I kind of feel like I have no right to really say that, because I am not a black person. I can't identify with just the lifelong struggle and emotions and everything that it must feel to be a black person living in the world, no matter what country you live in. I think the UK, I think it's been clearly demonstrated to us recently that the UK is just as bad. We have our very own specific almost type of racism that's sort of underlying, maybe not so much anymore. I think Brexit is a great demonstration of how that very like polite racism that doesn't get acknowledged is so at the forefront of hatred and a lot of bigotry that goes on in this country at the moment. And just on a personal level, this month I feel like I've experienced maybe like a 1%, less than 1% of that emotional exhaustion, with this constant barrage of names, of deaths, of injustices, of people who will never get to go home, being kind of very much present in my thinking every single day. Just like that ounce of being able to understand that, it makes living everyday life very difficult. And again, I think everything is so amplified right now with the emotions of everything going on in the world and how different times are right now. But it's an intense feeling, and it's hard. As a white person right now, specifically a white woman with a platform here on the internet, no matter how big or how small, and this applies to anybody watching this video as well. I think you have a platform if you even can speak to one person in your life. It kind of, to me, it feels like I have a responsibility to, you know, keep this conversation going. And I've really tried to kind of keep that level of sharing information and talking and having conversations alive on my social media. YouTube is a place where I feel like it's been a little bit harder to do that, mainly because I have to be like very forward facing to you guys. I have to be on camera and I have to talk, and I know I get comments quite often because I don't shy away from talking like about things, mostly about politics. I feel like politics is something I do engage with quite a bit on here on my channel, rightly or wrongly to some of your opinions, and I get comments saying, you know, I speak very eloquently on subjects like that and I can really talk and create interesting points, and actually I don't really feel that way personally myself. I think it's very easy to talk about a subject when you feel like you are directly affected and, you know, it's something that you can engage in and have conversations about, whereas this issue is so very bigger and broader. It's not just a political issue, like I said, it's a human issue, and I've been thinking a lot about how to kind of keep that conversation going here on my channel, which, I mean, if we're honest, is very much, other than maybe vlogs occasionally, it's very much centered around superficial things. You know, we talk about fashion here, we talk about clothes, makeup, things that don't really matter in honesty, but things that I think are important to give a place to talk about too, because, you know, they're a place we can go to switch off and to just keep our minds intact a little bit. I'm not claiming that a video of me putting makeup on my face for 25 minutes is profound or thought-provoking or in any way has, you know, a great deal of merit to it, but I still think it's important for people to have places to escape to. There's been a lot of kind of conversation around the topic of that, because I think as a black person there isn't the option to escape when it comes to this ever-present systemic racism that infiltrates every single part of everyday lives. I feel like I'm very much the type of person who is all or nothing. I find it very difficult to switch between topics and interests. You know, if I am fully committed and dedicated to something, it's very hard for me to just switch over, be a bubbly online persona who isn't thinking about that, you know, on the outside. Maybe it's on the inside. I actually put a post up on my social media and here as well, back at the beginning of the month. Although I hate the term influencer, I think it's a useful tool to describe a broader community of creators. But I said, why do we have to choose between being influencers or activists? We can be both. And I think that's very true. So content has to return back to normal. People have jobs, people have rent to pay, and the world has to move on. But the world, I think, now has to move on in a much more conscious, compassionate way. Having difficult conversations with people in our everyday lives has to be a regular occurrence. Having conversations with brands that I work with specifically, I feel like that's the part of my life where I can make a slightly bigger impact doing what I do and having the platform that I do, is to really consider who I am putting my name to and who I'm deciding to work with, and making sure that they are being inclusive with their creators that they choose to support and choose to have campaigns with, being inclusive and just always keeping that at the forefront of their mind, which as a brand I think they should do. I think acknowledging our white privilege as a white person is something that we should be thinking about every single day, and this is the topic, and this is the little point that I think it's very difficult for a lot of people to grasp. But that when we talk about white privilege, we're not saying that you've had an easy life, we're not saying that we've never been in a position of poverty or hardship or any kind of misfortune, because that is not the case of white privilege. It is purely the fact that this world has been built upon a very unbalanced scale where systematically white people are favoured, where everything is built for us, is created for us, laws are made by people like us, for people like us. It's just a way of saying that, you know, we've been given a leg up in life, whereas people of colour and the black community have not been given that advantage. And it's such an easy thing to accept, and it's such an easy thing to see and to understand. And yet I feel like that's the hardest place for a lot of people to kind of have that internal realization and understand that. And really that's the place that I think we all need to start. It's the base level. Accepting your own white privilege really is the first and the most necessary thing that I think we can do to understanding truly what racism means and being actively anti-racist ourselves. So I feel like I couldn't really go on without talking about this, and I wanted to keep this quite frank and quite, you know, I haven't planned anything that I'm going to say, which is probably quite a disadvantage to me and my rambly ways of communicating. But I think this is a place where I want to talk about this type of thing, and I encourage you actively to talk about it too. Okay, so that is what I wanted to say at the beginning of this video. I actually had intended to make this into a favourites. It's kind of going up in the slot where I would have done my June favourites. In terms of favourites of the month, I feel like my whole month has been very consumed with the Black Lives Matter movement, and this subject is something I've been constantly thinking about. It's been at the forefront of my mind and everything I'm doing. So I really wanted to dedicate it to the reading that I've been doing from black authors. I've also been buying a lot from black owned brands, which I think is a great way to kind of really put your money where your mouth is. It's very important to invest and encourage black owned brands to thrive and grow, particularly smaller independent businesses. So I'm gonna go and grab some of the things that I wanted to show you guys and talk about some of the books that I have been reading. Yeah, I'm gonna go do that and I'll see you back here in a second. Okay, we're gonna sit up here for this because my knees really can't take the floor anymore. I truly am getting old. So I want to talk about what I have been reading first of all this month. For me as a reader, I call myself a reader, despite the fact I think I've read now 6 books this year, which at, you know, we're halfway through the year now, at 1 a month is not great for someone that wants to call themselves that. But I love books. I feel very connected to books. I feel like if I want to know something, if I want to really gather a lot of information or research something, that books are the place that I feel the most comfortable doing so. And I feel like I absorb everything the best like that. And then with fiction, it feels like the place that I can most easily escape to. So books are very important to me, and I feel like they are such a tool in learning specifically about the Black Lives Matter movement and just the history of race and inequality, slavery in general, because we can actually read the perspectives of black authors, which is a very important thing to be doing. I think if we're going to listen and we're going to really learn about this, then we need to listen to black voices, and that's what I've been trying to do. So I want to talk about this book first. I feel like this is the stepping stone at the moment. Everybody is reading this book. I think it actually went to the top of the bestseller list, which it's never done before, and sold out on Amazon. I've never actually seen a book sold out on Amazon before, so that was quite impressive. I want to add a little side note actually about this book and the author, Reni Eddo-Lodge. This is why I'm no longer talking to white people about race, by the way. I haven't actually said that yet. She tweeted and she was talking about the fact that she feels slightly uncomfortable about her book generating so much revenue currently and going to the top of all these lists, you know, and kind of profiting off of this turbulence that's kind of erupting at the moment, at the time we find ourselves in. I think she's mentioned making donations with some of the royalties that she's gained from the book recently, which is, you know, her choice to make. So if you are thinking about this book, I highly encourage you to perhaps find it secondhand, to borrow it from a friend if you know they've been reading it. I personally, Joey's going to read this next, and then I'll be passing it along, and hopefully it can make its way with all my scribbles and doodles and underlining, which probably is going to put people off, make its way to as many people as possible. So that's just a little something I wanted to add. So this book is very UK based. Reni Eddo-Lodge is a UK based author, and it does a really great job of just introducing you to what it is like being a black person in Britain, with a lot of historical background, current day politics and how that gets involved. There's a very interesting chapter in here about feminism, the feminism question, and how white feminism can actually be almost kind of quite disparaging to black women, because, you know, everything is a feminist issue. Race is a feminist issue, equality is a feminist issue, poverty is a feminist issue. So it talks a lot about that and intersectionalism. Obviously this kind of covers the topic of white privilege and gives a really good understanding into that, and then also kind of covers the issue of race and class very briefly towards the end. There's a whole section actually which talks about the borough of London that I actually live in, and the kind of differences between the population and the wealth gap purely between the west and east of that borough. So it kind of puts me right in the position of being able to understand that and seeing these places and knowing these places from, you know, the fact that I live here. So that was incredibly interesting to me on a personal level, but still very, very relevant to anybody reading it. This book is a very just kind of like frank, fact-based, but not in an unobtainable type of way, read. It's incredibly educational. It tells you so much, specifically about the country that we live in here in the UK. And I think it just, I don't want to say the word eye-opener, because whether we like to admit it or not, I think people have had their eyes open to this. We always have. It's something that you know goes on, but there's been no accountability to that. And I think that's really what is happening now, is that people need to realize that we have to have that accountability, and we have to keep going with this conversation. We have to keep this something that is not just kind of swept under the rug in this very British manner, again bringing back that polite racism aspect that we seem to just embrace so much here in the UK. It needs to be talked about, and it needs to be something that, you know, not only is in our politics and is reflected in that, but it's just in our everyday life. So I mean, if you're in the UK, even if you're in the US, I think this would be a great thing to read if you're in anywhere in the world, to just have an understanding. I think I'd really like to next move on to another non-fiction that's maybe based more around US politics and history, and to kind of compare the differences between that, because I know our countries, although they have the same issues really, they're tackled and talked and thought about in very different ways. So if anybody has any suggestions for something kind of like a history of the US. Yeah. So the next book I read, and the next one I really wanted to read, this has actually been on my to-read list for a long time, is Between the World and Me from Ta-Nehisi Coates. This is such a different book when you compare these two. Although the subject matter is actually, you know, when you read between the lines and look at it, they're exactly the same. They're all talking about what it's like to be black, and how that's perceived to the world and how it feels. But this one, this is such a beautifully written book. It's a very kind of short, easy read. I read this in one sitting. It took me about 2.5 hours. And I was just absolutely absorbed in it. I was so engrossed in this story because it just reads like one flowing thought. It's actually presented in form of a letter to the author's son. So it reads as if he is talking to his son. The language used in this is so kind of evocative and beautiful. It really is beautiful, despite the subject matter being at times traumatic and really hard to actually digest and to read. It's a beautifully written book. It almost reads like prose, but it is the pure lived experience of this author, his fears, his thoughts, how he perceives the world is going to be for his son, and that's really what the whole thing is kind of aimed towards. It actually says this on the front. There's a quote from Toni Morrison which says this is required reading, and I truly agree with that. I think with a book like this, there's not really much I even want to say. There's not much I want to add. There's not much I feel I can add. I think you just need to read this. You just are in the mind of this black man living or coming from Baltimore, living in America, everything that he sees and knows and how it affects him on a mental level, how it affects him day to day. It's just kind of like breathtaking in the fact that it's a life. It is about a life. And as he calls it, this is kind of the theme he runs with. It's a black body. He sees himself as a black body, and it's so powerful. It really is. Like I said, there's not really much I can say about it other than it's truly like transportative. I think it's maybe one of the best examples that as a white person you may be able to find that really puts you into that perspective, and it's brutal and honest and required reading. So a less constructive review, but nonetheless two such important books. I think for me personally this was a great place to start. I really connected with both of these, despite them being non-fiction, which actually in my history of reading I'm typically not one for non-fiction. I find it hard to absorb. Why I'm no longer talking to white people about race does read a lot more like a non-fiction, whereas this one reads a lot more like a fictional story despite it being non-fiction. So yeah, non-fiction is definitely something that I need to allow myself to absorb a lot more. It takes longer, and I think that's what frustrates me. It takes me longer because I find myself rereading things and trying to retain that information, which unlike a fiction novel I can just like whiz through, but so important to keep educating ourselves. So I have a couple more books. I've ordered a few things. I'm trying really hard to order these from places, independent booksellers. There's a great website which I think is called Hive. Almost can be kind of compared to Amazon, but without the terrifying, scary billionaire profiting from all of our purchases. So I've been trying to purchase from independent booksellers. Like I said, a lot of books. I actually had to buy this one from Amazon because, again, it was sold out for weeks and weeks, which is kind of a great thing to see. I think it's a great thing that that type of literature is being consumed now so much, and hopefully that is something that will continue. But yeah, I've been trying to purchase from independent booksellers, which is why a few of the things that I have wanted to read aren't here. I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings, which is, I think it's the first part of a series of autobiographies from Maya Angelou. And I think it's very important to have kind of that female perspective as a woman myself, that female voice in all this reading that I'm doing, because not only is it relatable to me, it's also something that I think is really important to hear for anyone. So I also have Queenie here. I think this has been one of the books that's a little bit more mainstream. So this is a fiction, this is a novel based around the character Queenie. I don't know a lot about it other than that. It's by Candice, Carty-Williams, but I know this is it was longlisted for the Women's Prize for Fiction, and I think it's her debut novel as well. So I've been really excited to read this. Actually, I wanted to make sure I was kind of going through the more non-fiction educational books first, but then for me and my reading style, I think it's going to be great to break up some of that with the type of novel that I am more used to consuming. And despite this being fiction, I know that it tackles some really important issues, potentially in a way that is easier to absorb for a lot of people that find it hard to just read plain facts and figures on a page. So I'm really excited about reading that one too. I definitely have a list pretty much as long as, not even my arm, as long as my body, longer in fact, of books that I want to read right now. So I'm trying not to overwhelm myself and have just piles and piles and piles of things mounting up. So I'm going to try and read those 4 books this month. 2 down, 2 to go, kind of like a once a week thing, because once I get reading, I do find it very easy to just be absorbed in it and do nothing else. So I'm going to try and read those 4 this month, and then we will see. I'm gonna keep you guys updated on my reading. I think I have been doing that in the last couple of favourites videos. I think it's a good place to kind of share that. It's like a roundup of the month. It's a good place to talk about things like that, rather than perhaps specific book videos, which I do know that you guys like to see. I see the comments, but they don't always get the most views. So I think maybe spreading that like conversation awareness is better placed in a video that does reach a lot of you, like a favourites. So yeah, that's what I've been reading. I've totally lost track of what I was doing here. When I start talking about books, I find it hard to stop. So the purchases that I've made, I've been really trying to look specifically into beauty. I'm gonna talk first about this one here. This is from Líha Beauty, who are a brand that were very much on my radar before. They're kind of local to me. They're Cheltenham and Hackney. So it's great to see like a London-based independent brand. And this, I have seen pictures of this bottle in so many places. It's the Idan oil. It's a cold pressed coconut oil, and it's fragrance with tuberose, and tuberose is one of my favorite scents. It's nothing that I ever used to like, but it's one that's really grown on me over the last couple of years, which is very strange. Scents tend to do that at the moment. This smells so beautiful. To me at the moment, this smells like summer and heat waves because I've been wearing this while it's been really sunny. So this is such a multi-purpose oil. It kind of comes quite solid. You can tell that it's cold at the moment because it's completely solid, very similarly to how your coconut oil would be when it sits in your cupboard, when you use for cooking. You know when it's warm outside because it kind of melts a bit. So I just put the bottle in the bottom of my shower in the morning, and like that 5-10 minutes of warmth kind of melts enough for me to use. And I've been using this in so many different ways. I started using it all over as a body oil because I love body oils, and it is beautiful for that. It's a really nice oil that sinks in, and it does feel very moisturizing. It doesn't feel like it just sits on top of your skin like some oils can do and, you know, leave all your clothes and everything greasy. It doesn't do that. It definitely feels like it hydrates. They actually have a body cream which I think is shea butter based, if you're more into like the creaminess of a body moisturizing product. I like an oil, but this I've been using on my face. I actually put a lot of it in my hair to sort of help these poor neglected split ends. I've been using it as a deodorant too, just the days that I'm around the house, which is pretty much every single day, you know, at the moment in this current climate. Coconut oil is actually a great antibacterial product, so works really well for deodorant. I think if I was, you know, running or doing any particular like strenuous activity, it maybe wouldn't cover what I needed to cover, but just for around the house every day to save myself using an actual kind of like aluminium based deodorant, I have been using that. Really excited to have that as part of my everyday routine now, because it has so many uses. I also purchased a candle from the same brand, from Líha. I haven't wanted to burn this yet because it is truly so beautiful. It's the Queen Idia African Moss candle. It smells so good. First of all, I love that it comes with a little cork stopper. Candles that have a lid instantly just seem so much more luxurious. I don't know why. This kind of smells along the lines of the body oil. It's got that same very deep and warm musk scent to it, but then this one isn't fragranced with tuberose, so it's a lot more just like enveloping and warming, a little bit spicy, a little bit vanilla-y, deep, really, really luxurious smelling. I was gonna burn this on my birthday. It was my birthday in the month of June. My birthday didn't actually go to plan this month, so maybe that's something I'll talk about again in a minute, maybe not, but I'm still looking for an opportunity to burn this. Maybe I'll do it tonight, you know, I'll just bite the bullet and burn the candle. It really is just like reading and books for me. I find it very difficult to start something off when it's so kind of perfect and intact. Okay, anyway, on to the next brand that I discovered. Most of these actually were done through Instagram. A lot of people have been sharing black-owned businesses and brands on social media, which I think is great. You know, seeing that all on there and having it so readily available, and then being able to explore Instagram pages and see things that are on offer. Great place to do that. I do actually have a highlight on my Instagram profile page. It's a Black Lives Matter highlight where I've obviously shared a lot of the information that I found over the month, and a lot of the brands that I'm talking about now, and have also found and wanted to buy from, and some creators that I've been following too. So if you want like a very basic rundown of information, that's a good place to go if you follow me on Instagram. So yes, the second brand is Njie, and I think so this is a perfume brand, and I think she has both Swedish and West African roots, and you can really see that in the kind of like marketing, the package that this arrived in. Had these beautiful vintage photographs, which I think were of her family. So just wonderful to see. I loved that combination of like very homey personal touches alongside this gorgeous, as you can tell, like minimal Scandi type of branding. So I'm not one to blindly order perfumes, especially full size ones online, without trying them first. but I read the description of this one and I just knew that this was going to be the one. So this is Vanilj, which is vanilla in Swedish. This has notes of, let me read them to you. So it has notes of vanilla and cardamom, patchouli, musk, cedarwood and amber, and I feel like those 6 notes are everything I've ever wanted to be combined into a fragrance. And when I got this, and the second I smelt it, I knew I was not disappointed. It's not dissimilar actually to Diptyque's Eau d'Oil, which is another vanilla based fragrance. I say vanilla, to me when I think of vanilla fragrances, I'm instantly taken back to something like the Body Shop's vanilla body spray, which I used to religiously use when I was 12, which is like a very straight down the middle vanilla scent. These are so much more complex and full of other scents, but still very much like evoke the smell of vanilla and the memory of that for me. So this is like vanilla for grown-ups. It's deep and musky, like the amber and the cedar would suggest, but still super sweet, but sweet without being overwhelmingly sweet. I love this. And the staying power is beautiful too, really long lasting. This is the only perfume I've been wearing since I got it. It's the only one I want to smell. It's also one of those scents that you know you've been wearing this. If you have like a coat on or a jumper, you take it off, you put it on a few days later and it's still there. So I also wanted to try a couple of the other scents. There's a very small selection of refined scents. I think there's 5 altogether, and what you can do is buy these as testers. Kind of like an introduction to the brand and the scents. So I got the little tester kit, which I think is only about 15-16 pounds. Really great, considering that these are also atomizer sprays. These are actually very user friendly. So there is Tropica here, which I've actually used quite a bit of. I think this is maybe my 2nd favorite of all the scents. It's very like summer holidays, a little bit floral and fragrant, but really like fruity too. So good. I also have really enjoyed using Tobacco. This is like a straight up tobacco leather, super deep, intense scent. This smells like a good man, a very good man. I should probably put this on Joe and see how it smells, but I'd have to share it then. It's one of those scents that could definitely be unisex. I think all of these actually could be unisex. There's Le Fleur, which is a beautiful floral, really like a little bit sharp and cyphery. And then I haven't actually tried these 2, but there's Nordic Cedar, which I think is a bit more of like a woody, very green type of scent. And then I've also got a little mini of Vanilj to carry around with me, which is great. I like the fact that I now have a small version to just pop in my pocket if I need to. So highly recommend checking those out if you're into your fragrances, your minimalist Scandi brands, and this in particular, vanilla. So worth it. But I think the Discovery set is a great place to start too. So yeah, those are the things that I wanted to talk about that I have been buying. My camera battery is flashing at me because I have literally been talking for so long, so I'm gonna go and change that and then we can round this whole thing up. And I'm back in a different spot again. One of my frames fell down from this little foursome that I have going on here, and I have yet to put it back up again because I need to refill the hole and re-nail it in, and that is just something I haven't got around to doing. All this extra time and yet no free time at all. So yeah, I kind of wanted to just conclude today's video, which has been a little bit here, there and everywhere. I think this is just very much what it's going to say on the tin. This is a catch-up video. And in terms of catching up on life and more personal things to do with me, I did want to talk about the fact that I keep saying this month, even though we're already in July, you're gonna have to just excuse that because I know it's frustrating and hard to keep up with. But June, for the last, I wanna say like 4 or 5 years, June has always been I Covet June here on this channel. And I did have a few of you guys actually message me asking if that was gonna happen, when it was gonna happen. And you may have noticed, in fact, that instead of uploading 4 or 5 videos a week, as I would do normally for I Covet June, I didn't upload at all. And there's a lot of factors that contributed towards that, which I've kind of already skated over and covered already. Obviously, kind of just being present and on camera at the moment, at this time, which for some in the same industry has been, you know, a very natural thing to do, and I commend that because I find it very difficult to switch off from things that are on my mind and just, you know, carry on as if everything is normal. It's a trait that sometimes I wish I did have, but I don't. I personally have noticed the older I've gotten, I get very affected, my mental health gets very affected by outside sources, by trauma going on in the world that doesn't really affect me, and I get very drawn into it and I get very absorbed by it, and it's something that I need to probably learn to work on, because it's just as important to live my life too. Same goes for anybody else watching this. It's just as important to acknowledge your own personal issues and struggles and not compare them to everything going on in the world, because I don't think anybody who feels that they truly genuinely have you know, things that they don't feel great about should ever discount them because they feel like, oh, you know, everybody else has it so much worse off. I think that's definitely not the case, and you should really just take care of yourself where you can. So yes, I covered June. I kind of, running in the run up to the month, I decided that it maybe wasn't something I was going to do this year. That's not to say that I won't ever do it again. If you're new here and you have no idea what I'm talking about, by the way, I covered June as kind of like my everyday May, or my, you know, Vlogmas type of thing. It's the month where I really dedicate to filming a lot of content, and obviously filming a lot of content requires having a lot of ideas and things going on. Usually I schedule a lot of stuff around June to fill those videos with, and obviously we're in a place right now where that's not possible to do, and I never want to sit here and encourage people to do things they're not comfortable with, which I know that you watching this out there are informed, intelligent, smart people, and you're never going to be influenced into doing something that you don't feel comfortable with. I respect you enough to acknowledge that and understand that, but sometimes it just feels like, you know, I don't want to be running around doing frivolous things, looking like I have a perfect life when I don't. I really, really don't. So that was on my mind, and also just the fact that I put out a lot of videos at the beginning of lockdown, which I felt at the time was a really good thing to do, and I wanted to keep you guys entertained because it was a really strange place to be in. We hadn't settled into that yet, and although we're still in that same position now, pretty much, honestly guys, I ran out of ideas. I ran out of things to talk about, to film. Really, I covered June during April, so that's where you got all the content. So yeah, June has been a very quiet month for me, really. Like I said, I've done a lot of reading and reflecting and educating myself. It was also my birthday. Let's cover that. I turned 28 on the 25th of June this year. It was always going to be a funny birthday. It was always going to be a strange one, being here in lockdown. If we're honest, I think about this a lot. Lockdown life is not dissimilar to my everyday life. I spend a lot of time at home. I'm a homebody, and I go out, I do things, I see people, but you know, I feel most comfortable and most happy here in my home. I mean, it's probably split down the middle. It's probably the case of an introvert extrovert type of situation where you either do or you don't. Lockdown is either comfortable for you to be in or not, but really it does get to a point where these months go on that even the most introverted of introverts need things that were not available or are not available to us right now. So I fully understand the introvert struggle of, you know, feeling most comfortable inside and knowing that this is where I want to be most of the time, but it's still feeling like just a difficult thing to work through at the moment. So yes, my birthday wasn't great. Not for selfish reasons. I mean, I'm 28 now. A birthday is just another day, honestly, but it's hard not being able to see the people you love the most. That's kind of what I'm trying to say. So yeah, that went by. Those of you kind of wanting vlogs and wanting videos, you've not been missing out on anything, truly. I think a lot of people are seeing this time now as like the light at the end of the tunnel, and that we're coming to a point where things are going to start changing. Personally, for me, I'm very reluctant to just jump into things like that. I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that are dying to go to the pub. For me, it's something that I can wait, I can hold off for a while. So that's kind of like my stance and what I'll be doing. But I think, you know, you have to do what you're comfortable with, and you have to do what's right for you and your own mental health. But of course, always keeping in mind the safety of others. I think that's something we can all agree on, and I think is the right thing to do. So I think there's really much else to say to you guys. It's been quite nice to just chat, really, and, you know, catch up. So I hope all of you guys are okay out there. I hope that this time has been as easy as possible for you, and not too difficult. and I apologise for my lack of posting. I like to think of it as I took June off, you know? Most people get 4-ish weeks of holiday a year, and I decided to use mine in June, even though technically I don't really get holiday and I'm my own boss, and you know, I have to pay my bills too. But yeah, let's just write June off as my summer holiday. My summer holiday spent indoors, and there we go. So hopefully I'm gonna go back to posting regularly now. I'm gonna try, let's aim for like 2 a week. Let's go back to the good old schedule of Mondays, Fridays, because it's been so, I don't even know what day of the week it is most of the time as it is. It's been so long since I uploaded on actual scheduled upload days. So yeah, I will hopefully see you guys again very, very soon. I hope you're all doing really well. And that is it for me today. Bye bye.